Hey everybody, Jeff Wall and Nolan Kangas here, bringing you some more draft grades. We got the AFC and NFC East teams today, and there was a lot of interesting moves with these ones that we could have argued that this might have been the first one we should have shown. Either way, you got them now. We're going to be talking all the New York teams, the Cowboys, the Patriots, the Bills, the Dolphins, the Redskins, all those teams today. But first off, Nolan, how you doing, buddy?
Not too bad, man. I'm really glad we're laying these out back-to-back days, and keep the NFL and sports talk moving. So it's definitely fun. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm doing good. And this was an exciting one to talk about. There's a lot of intrigue here. I think depending on how you look at it, you could grade these differently. But let's start off with one, the NFC East. Let's go with the Philadelphia Eagles, Nolan. There was probably no greater talking point in day two than the Eagles when they took Jalen Hurts in the second round. How did you feel about that pick, and how did you feel about their draft overall?
Okay, so I'll start off with who you mentioned, Jalen Hurts, and I love his game. Just a competitor. He seems like a really great leader, and we know a mobile quarterback. He has a pretty big arm, not a lot of touch, not a ton of accuracy, but I still like his game, and I think it translates to the NFL for sure with good coaching at that. Where they took him was really interesting, and the team that took him. So I didn't really understand the move in the second round, that it was the Eagles who went and got him. I thought maybe Indianapolis, your Chicago Bears, maybe would have made sense. Even the Buccaneers, just to have Hurts learn behind Tom Brady. We know Brady can't play forever. But for the Eagles, when you have Carson Wentz, who's 27 years old, I get he's injury prone, but he's still a really talented quarterback in this league. And for them, I believe it was Doug Peterson and Howie Roseman to say, we think he can fit in a Taysom Hill type role. Give me a break. You know how much I hate Taysom Hill in that New Orleans Saints offense, and now he's going to get extension $16 million next year, whatever it is. I just don't think it makes sense to spend a second rounder on a backup quarterback unless you think Carson Wentz, if he gets injured one more time, Hurts is your guy. If that's the plan, okay, I can maybe get behind that. But if Wentz stays healthy, you make the playoffs again, which I really think will happen for this Eagles team. It's a little bizarre. But when we look at the rest of the draft, they know they needed some weapons. So they answer that with a few receivers. Jalen Reagor, of course, you and I both love. Reagor, who we know, he's got a ton of speed. And, the quarterback play he had at TCU was absolutely atrocious. So I think he's going to fit in with a really talented quarterback like Wentz and kind of be that number one receiver moving forward. You look at John Hightower, he's a burner from Boise State, and Quez Watkins from Southern Mississippi. Looked at some of his tape. He's a burner as well. Probably the move that I think was a little underrated here was K'Von Wallace out of Clemson, a safety, a leader. He comes from a great defense with Brett Venables out of Clemson. So I think he'll fit in to where Malcolm Jenkins was. I was a little hesitant at corner. I think they maybe think they're set there with Darius Slay and Nikel Roby-Coleman, and that they didn't really draft another one the rest of the way. I think they needed another linebacker. So I think Davion Taylor out of Colorado, they picked him in the third round. It was an interesting pick, but hey, if they think he's going to be a talented player in that roster for a long time coming, I thought it was an okay draft. I gave him a B-. I just think the Hurts move is a little confusing. Not, hating on the player at all. I think he's going to be really talented, but the team fit isn't there for me.
Yeah, I agree. I somewhat agree with most of what you said. It was somewhat underwhelming. I thought I'll start with the two Jalen's, back-to-back Jalen's, first and second round. Obviously Jalen Reagor goes before Justin Jefferson, and that's been a lot of the talk too, that a lot of people rated Justin Jefferson a lot higher. Obviously you and me both love him, like we've said a billion times. I just think that you're splitting hairs at that point with those two. I think they're very close in grade. It really depends on kind of maybe what you're looking for more. I definitely think that they needed a weapon. They got the weapon that they needed, and they made the right move there. The Jalen Hurts one, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I just think the Philadelphia Eagles are doing what they have done always, what Jeffrey Lurie has always done. That's led him to success. This is his philosophy. He always wants a strong QB too. So for the people saying, I don't know what the Eagles are doing. Look, I think Jalen Hurts, to be honest, I think this is partly because of the public perception of him. A lot of people don't love him that much. I think he's really good, and I think in a few years, maybe even 1 year in this system with Doug Peterson, I think he could be really, really good, and I think they know what's hurt them. It's the receivers and Carson Wentz getting hurt. They won a Super Bowl on the back of Nick Foles, their backup quarterback. They're trying to do the same thing again. What I think is going to be way better than Nick Foles as a backup. Yes, the team is not as good as it was when they won that Super Bowl, of course, but overall, I think Jalen Hurts can get you there. I really think he's good. He's improved every single year, whether it's been Alabama or Oklahoma. That's two different environments, two different systems. Overall, I gave them a B. I think that there was areas they could have done a little bit better, but I think they addressed the needs that they had to, Nolan.
Yeah, so the Hurts thing, I think that's the main topic of this. If Jalen Reagor fits their offense a little bit better, Justin Jefferson as a whole might be a better receiver. But when you look at the team fits, Carson Wentz has a cannon of an arm. He needs an absolute burner down the field. Not a lot of people thought Justin Jefferson was going to run a 4.4 flat at the combine, so maybe his game speed is a little bit different than Reagor, who is a burner and has some really good hands as well and plays bigger than his size. So I think Jefferson fits well with what the Vikings do play action-wise. Kirk Cousins, he's going to be the Stephon Diggs in the middle, whereas Reagor can play all over the field, and they need a guy like that opposite of Alshon Jeffrey. That is who their number two guy is going to be. Jeffrey's situation in Philly is still going to be up in the air. It feels like it's a similar situation to what Rodgers did and Jordan Love have in Green Bay now. I just think either they think if Wentz gets injured again, we can't go in with Josh McCown in a playoff game, and at least we have a guy like Jalen Hurts. If he does get hurt again, I think he's gone. I don't think they can keep having trust in a guy who's clearly going to be injury prone when you have a guy like Jalen Hurts there. To me, I see running ability of Cam Newton. Very slashy. He's not afraid to drop his shoulder down and hit you and get those extra yards. Throwing wise, I think it would be similar to Dak Prescott. So, that's, high praise for, a guy coming out of, I guess Alabama and then Oklahoma. I just think where he was drafting the team that did it, maybe they didn't want him falling to another NFC competitor. So that was maybe the reason for the move as well.
I would agree with that. I think there was a little bit of fear of him dropping too far with all the quarterback needy teams like you mentioned. Now on to the next one. David Crosby, another member of the Pick Six podcast, was definitely smiling this whole weekend. Well, just about everybody else was banging their head against the wall because the Dallas Cowboys absolutely killed this draft. I mean, this was incredible. I have no idea, Nolan, how, by all accounts, at least the number one or number two receiver fell so far into this draft. He was considered like top 15, potentially even, top 10. Like, his talent was incredible. CeeDee Lamb, of course, we're talking about here, fell to the Dallas Cowboys. They pick him up. And I mean, just the idea of him with Amari Cooper, Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, that offensive line. I mean, come on, man. Like, Dallas Cowboys fans, I mean, you guys have it good. And I mean, realistically, Mike McCarthy, I don't know how much of an upgrade he is over Jason Garrett, but man, you guys should have a very good offense next year. Obviously, there's going to be growing pains as with any new team, especially in this, sort of unprecedented sort of season. But this team is now loaded with weapons. CeeDee Lamb could arguably be a number one receiver on almost any team. And then, you look down the line, Nolan, and I just think, man, the Dallas Cowboys they're just so good at this. They get Trayvon Diggs, who is falling like crazy. One of the top corners at first when we were going into this draft. He falls all the way down. They get a guy who is athletic. He's got great ball skills. He used to be a receiver. He's got that Alabama pedigree, so he knows how to do, press, man, and zone coverages like nobody else. Then you get, Travis Frederick, retiring. And then you go up to the offensive line factory where he was drafted in Wisconsin and took up Tyler Biadasz, who was a first-round center last year. Going into last year, he could have been a first-round center. They picked him up in the 4th round. So they just, fortified their offensive line yet again. Somehow. I don't know how that happened. And then, looking up, a little further, where they got Neville Gallimore from Oklahoma in the 3rd round. And I just thought to myself, like, wow. So now they got him, a brick wall in their defense, to go along with Dontari Poe, who's still massive, and Gerald McCoy. Like, I don't understand how they got that much better in this draft. So I gave them an A+. Like, this was a slam dunk. This was an unreal draft for the Dallas Cowboys. Personally, I guess I'll just give it away, but I kind of think this makes them favorites for the division. What about you, Nolan?
I think an A+ is a little bold for me. I think they're missing still some team needs. Unless you think Clinton Dix is going to be, the Harrison Smith, the Jamal Adams at safety there up top. They didn't draft a safety. That's a hole still on their defense. We've seen Clinton Dix has been now on 3 teams in, however many years he's been drafted, 4 or 5 years. I guess this is his 4th team. So that's pretty wild to me. I do like the pick of the center out of Wisconsin. That was an absolute steal. Gallimore is another piece in the middle. They didn't get an edge rusher, which worries me a little bit. So you either have to have confidence that Aldon Smith is going to be the player he was for the 49ers when, he was dominating with Justin Smith back then. If he's fully healthy now and he's fully recovered from, everything that he went through. The Diggs pick was nice. The CeeDee Lamb pick is a home run. And that's what kind of, I see why you thought that was maybe an A+. They made that move. They didn't need to get a receiver. They definitely didn't need to get one, but the Eagles would have taken him. So I think they just said, hey, we don't want him burning our defense for years to come. Jerry Jones loves him. I know we were talking back and forth. CeeDee Lamb wants to wear number 10. Jerry wants to come in there and say, hey, buddy, you're the new playmaker. You're rocking 88 moving forward. So you're right. They had a really good draft. I'm just worried they didn't get another edge rusher and they didn't get another safety, but their offense is going to be top 5 in football. If Dak Prescott doesn't, put up numbers that we expect him to, I think they'll be fine moving on from him and taking a rookie quarterback who they like, because look at all the weapons surrounding him, man, and a good offensive line.
Yeah, exactly. I think they've set themselves up for success, which is why I had to give them the A+, to be honest. I understand why you wouldn't, giving out the best grade you could possibly give is tough. But let's move on now, though, to the Washington Redskins. A tough team. The new look Washington Redskins, though, with Ron Rivera, they took the consensus best player in the draft, Chase Young, to add to an already pretty stacked front seven. What did you think of their draft?
I love their draft. I think everybody in the NFC East had a really good draft. So obviously you get the best player in the draft in Chase Young. You didn't even need an edge rusher, but they said, hey, let's make the mold of what the San Francisco 49ers did and just get a ton of defensive line players. And they have that now moving forward. We know Jaron Payne, Ryan Kerrigan, Montez Sweat, who can run a 4.4 that we saw at the Combine last year. But the Trent Williams trade, did they get enough? Did they get their tackle in the future of Sadiq Charles out of LSU? I think there's some question marks here and there. They still need another corner. And, I was talking to some Redskins fans, and they wanted Bryce Hall, who ended up falling in the 5th round. But it's Kendall Fuller. Is it going to be Ronald Darby? Is going to be the other corner? He got beat up bad in Philly last year. So I think they should have taken a corner in this draft. But I love some of the playmakers they got. Antonio Gibson in the 3rd round from Memphis. A receiver, he can run the ball quite a bit too. So he's kind of an do-it-all threat. Even on special teams, he'll return some punts and return some kicks. Antonio Gandy Golden, absolutely love that pick. 80 catches, 1,400 yards last year for Liberty. Big guy too, about around 6'3", 6'4". So I think moving forward, Terry McLaurin and him is going to be a really sweet 1-2 punch for the Redskins and Dwayne Haskins. I gave them a B because I think even though you took the best player in the draft, there's still some question marks at the linebacker position, and there's still some question marks. I know Landon Collins didn't really fit that safety position, what they had last year. He disappointed quite a bit. So I think the secondary is going to be a huge question mark. Their front seven is going to be really talented, and I think who is going to protect the blind side of Dwayne Haskins? Is it Charles? Is it going to be somebody else? That's going to be a few question marks moving forward. I like some pieces of their draft.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's a solid draft. Nothing. It wasn't bad. They did. I don't think they messed up. I don't think they're going to be a worse team next year. Hopefully, I mean, Trent Williams is definitely a big loss, but either way, we know he probably wasn't even going to be playing next year for them anyway. So yeah, solid draft. Nothing wrong with it. I'm going to give it a B-. I'm a little bit lower on it. I thought those are good players, but maybe they could have gotten a little bit better. I think that, you see later in the draft, we already talked about a few in the last episode, their defensive front is going to be amazing and cause a lot of problems for just about everybody in the NFC East. And the two teams that have, had success in this is, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Dallas Cowboys. What's the thing that's always really helped them get to the top is their offensive lines. Now they have something that can challenge that for the future and for like the next couple of years. All right, Nolan, now we got to talk about the New York Giants. And I think we were all kind of waiting, myself included, for Dave Gettleman to really shake up this draft with an absolutely wild pick or just something that we just thought, okay, probably shouldn't have done that in the top 5. But he proved us all wrong, I think. And he had some solid picks all the way down throughout this entire draft. I think they did a really good job. I gave him a B+. There was some issues a little bit, but I think they got a lot of good value, especially for what they had. So first off, it's very clear. They're committed to Daniel Jones. They're committed to Saquon Barkley and making sure those guys stay healthy, stay upright, and which is not something that you could say for the New York Giants in the past. They've done a terrible job protecting whoever is under center for them. And you get a guy like Shane Lemieux in the fifth to go along with Andrew Thomas.
Yeah.
You couldn't, like we've been saying, you couldn't have missed on those tackles. So I definitely can't be mad at Andrew Thomas being the first one off the board, especially if you like him. And then you got Xavier McKinney in the second round. I thought that was a really good one because you're adding a lot of versatility to a defense that lacks just everything everywhere. So adding someone like that is huge for the defense and a great pair with Jabril Peppers, who had a pretty solid season on, again, a very bad defense that couldn't really help him, in that situation. What did you think of the Giants draft?
I liked it. I actually gave them an A, Jeff, and I think the reason for that was they went to what their needs were. Their offensive line was really bad. You go Andrew Thomas, who's a veteran. Basically he played right side, left side at Georgia, a running school, and he dominated for, quite a bit. Matt Pert in the third round. Questionable pick. I think he could have, slid to the fourth there. But again, you're bolstering that offensive line. You mentioned Shane Lemieux. The Oregon offensive line was one of the best in college football, and he was a huge part of that. So you slide him in at either left or right guard, and he's going to be a talented player. So they're building, a solid offensive line in front of Daniel Jones. Saquon Barkley needs to find some holes, so they're, helping him there. I don't think they needed to take any wide receivers because you have Sterling Shepard, who maybe hasn't been as good as maybe people thought. Darius Slayton is going to have another good year moving forward. Can Golden Tate stay healthy? They have Evan Ingram, who's been a really talented tight end who's got some speed. Again, if he can stay healthy. But their defense was a huge question mark, and I think they answered a little bit there. Xavier McKinney, not the best in coverage as a safety, but he can definitely stop the run. They took 4 other linebackers in this draft. Their goal is going to be, hey, we need to stop Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott. We need to stop Carson Wentz and Miles Sanders. And they have that, especially with Leonard Williams, who's pretty good stopping the run as well. This might be a wild card. The Giants have a little bit of money. There's an edge rusher out there who still isn't signed. Jadeveon Clowney would fit really well with this defense coming off the edge. So I think if you want to spend some money, it's got to be on your defensive side. And you get a guy like Jadeveon Clowney, who maybe hasn't put up the sack numbers that people expected, but he's really athletic and good at stopping the run as well. So I think I liked a lot of things that they did. They did get James Bradbury in free agency. They got Darnay Holmes, a cornerback out of UCLA in the draft. That's going to be a question mark of, are they going to be able to stop some of the weapons? You think of the Dallas Cowboys. Are they going to be able to stop all 3 of those players? Maybe not, but I like what they're doing for the future, especially on the offensive side of the ball.
I do like it too. And I think, again, it's sort of those situations where they did what they can. They filled up the needs to ensure that they're successful in the years to come. The main thing they got to do is make sure Daniel Jones is not hurt. And same thing with Saquon Barkley. They've invested a lot of those pieces into them. They're trying to build around them. So look, they're not anywhere near competing. They may be the furthest away from competing, but I think they did a really good job. And, hats off to Dave Gettleman. He surprised everybody that was ready to criticize him, including myself. But anyway, we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back with the AFC East teams. Don't go anywhere. Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying this video, but please make sure to like and share it with your friends. And of course, subscribe to Lingo Sports. Now, back to the video. Hey everybody, welcome back. We got the AFC East coming up. The Dolphins, Nolan, they tanked for Tua, and they still got him somehow, even though they weren't the first pick overall. Brian Flores and the Dolphins got their man and maybe changed the fortunes of their franchise with what looks like a pretty solid draft with maybe one question mark in it.
Yeah, I thought it was a solid draft. I gave him an A-. I think the Tua Tagovailoa pick, it works, but there was a lot of confusion the whole entire time. They wanted to trade up to 3 and take a tackle. They wanted to take Justin Herbert at 3. They were going to take Herbert at 5 anyway. I guess they were, fooling everybody and maybe wanted someone to give them a haul to trade up and get Tua. But hey, he ends up being in the Sunshine State in Miami. So I like that pick. He's not going to play a lot of games in the first year. I think you let that hip rest. I know he said, he's good to go. He's healthy. This is still not a great football team. They're really young. But I think for the future, they're building something moving forward. So Tua was a good pick. Austin Jackson, a little raw, but probably the youngest. I think he was the youngest tackle taken in this draft. So he'll be, the centerpiece on that line moving forward. The question mark was the corner at the end of the draft. Noah Begedgeni, whatever it is, but the Auburn corner. So I thought it was interesting because there was better corners on the board. Christian Fulton, whether it was Trayvon Diggs, Jalen Johnson, teams guy too. He has a ton of speed, so maybe that was something to see for the future as he's going to be a punt returner, a kick returner. Do you take that at the end of the first round? Maybe not, but maybe they like some of the things they saw from him. In the second, they killed it too. Robert Hunt, a guard out of Louisiana, he makes pancakes for breakfast, buddy. He runs you over. He's going to flatten any tackle, any D-end in his way. He's a really nice piece. And Raekwon Davis. Alabama creates really solid defenders, and they're known for having really good D tackles. So I think he's going to be another good piece moving forward for them. Curtis Weaver, sneaky pick out of Boise State. One complaint I have with this draft, wide receiver. They took Malcolm Perry, who played quarterback at Navy. And yeah, he's super quick. Again, that's a raw player coming in and trying to be a wide receiver. Your core right now is Devontae Parker, Preston Williams, and Albert Wilson. To me, is that going to help Tua moving forward? Probably not. He played with 4 first-rounders at Alabama. So I think, again, it's building for the future. When you look at next year's draft, maybe they got to take another safety or something along the lines of that, a middle linebacker. But if I'm the Miami Dolphins in next year's draft, and I believe you have 2 first-rounders again, you need a wide receiver, whether it's Rashad Bateman, Justin Ross, I think Jamar Chase, any of those guys would fit this team immensely because that's one key piece that's missing. And that scares me a little bit if they're just going to rock with this receiving core for a good portion of Tua's first couple of years. But other than that, they got a solid core moving forward.
Well, I undersold it a little bit, Nolan. I personally thought this was a slam dunk. I thought they killed it. Like, there was a lot of good picks here. And we'll start, obviously, first off, they went in the right direction. They didn't pick Justin Herbert like everybody was starting to think that they might, and I was worried that they would. I think that would have been a disaster for them. We both like Tua a lot. I think Tua is a great quarterback. I really hope you're right that they do sit him a little, let that hip rest. And I think let this team develop some sort of chemistry and an identity before he comes under fire. You got the Buffalo Bills that are going to get at you. You have the New England Patriots that are going to try and murder him. Like, this is not going to be a fun season if he's out there with very little protection. And like you said, very little options, which would be my only issue with the draft. But overall, I think that they're really trying to get that identity. They're trying to shut down everybody. I think that this defense looks really, really good. I gave them an A+. I thought it was an excellent draft. I thought it was the closest thing to a slam dunk that we may have seen in this entire draft. Well, now we'll go to the team that is probably close to the Dallas Cowboys, maybe second to them and the most hated team in the NFL. The Patriots traded out of the first round. Not a big surprise there, but as with any New England Patriots draft classes, you never really know what to expect, and I think they kind of show that ultimately. You never really know what they're going to address. Right away, they try to get they up that safety position with Kyle Duggar. I think he might have been a little bit of a surprise as being one of the first couple of safeties off the board there. But I think the Patriots are just kind of doing what they've always done. They build around that defense, especially now more than ever without Tom Brady, right? They add to their special teams, which I think in their eyes is probably what's going to win them a lot of games. Field position, defense, that's what's going to do it. Again, going back to Duggar, though, you got a guy that adds athleticism and maybe a little bit more physicality in terms of the hitting game that the Patriots didn't really have going into last season, maybe even to this season. Obviously, they're a heavy blitzing team, but you add him and you add a lot to that secondary for sure. Then you look at Josh Uche, great replacement for Jamie Collins. Jamie Collins, an athletic linebacker who, they lost, but he also is a great pass rusher. And that's something that they didn't have out of Jamie Collins realistically. Uche is a bit of a project, but so was Jamie Collins coming in. I think they can do a lot with him. And then they grabbed a kicker in the 5th round. And that was a little bit confusing, right? But again, they stuck with the courage of their convictions. Bill Belichick likes the kicker out of Marshall there. It's Justin Ross, where there was a bit of questions, which I'm going to get to. But apparently he kicks really good in bad weather, which is what they want to do. They want to be able to do that. They want to be able to win there. I gave them an A. There is a slight caveat, though, obviously, with Rosswire. So he has supposedly a 3%ers tattoo, which is like a right-wing militia group,
Yeah.
along with a few other tattoos, apparently. He says he'll cover them up. He said he got them when he was young. Okay, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt there. That's kind of a red flag to me. But I think overall, I kind of trust what Bill Belichick is doing and what Nike, the dog, is doing. I think they pulled off a great job between the two of them.
You know what? I'll go the opposite way. I gave them a C plus. There was nothing on this board that made a ton of sense to me. Duggar's a project. Everybody likes his athleticism. Again, that's a Division II player. He's going against. Maybe he should have been a D1 player, an FCS player. Would he have been the same? In at that type of level that he was in D2? We don't know. So he's a project. Huge is a project. Anthony Jennings was maybe their most sure pick, because as a linebacker coming from Alabama, of course, Nick Saban and Belichick have that connection. 2 tight ends in the 3rd round. Dalton Keene, I think, is the better of the 2. To me, there was a few holes. You need a wide receiver on this roster. Julian Edelman is getting up there in age, a little bit injury prone. Is N'Keal Harry the guy? I don't know, because you look at DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown, they were clearly the better receivers last year. So was Terry McLaurin. So is he going to be the guy you expected moving forward? Is it Marquise Lee coming in now? Is he going to be, the 3rd option for Jared Stidham? They didn't take the quarterback. That's what was shocking to me. You must have a lot of faith in Jared Stidham moving forward as your quarterback, or is it a 1-year project? Stidham deserves to be the starter. Let's see what he can do. This is a team that worries me moving forward. This hasn't been an always phenomenal drafting team. We've seen that from time to time. Of course, they got Tom Brady, 6th round, 199th overall. Since then, it's been a lot of undrafted free agents and a lot of sneaky late picks. In those first rounds, Patriots never really hit. So to me, it was a C plus.
You know what? I would definitely, I agree with you on that. I don't usually have a lot of faith in Bill Belichick drafts. I just don't think that they do a great job. Like you mentioned, I agree with that. I couldn't agree with you more, actually. It just seems like this is the direction that was always going to be best for them. I don't think that they were going to take a quarterback because they're going to trust their veterans more. They're always going to trust the veteran more. They're going to go with a guy that they know, especially with a weird offseason, that they can trust more. I definitely understand though what you're saying though, and I agree that sometimes it's always a little bit iffy. And yes, the 2 guys I mentioned, there's a chance that they could be a bit of a project, but I think they've worked with it before, and I just trust them a little bit though. But we'll move on now to the guys that, without Brady, may be the AFC East champions. They add Stephon Diggs with a trade from the Minnesota Vikings. No first-round picks, but they've added a lot of depth to an already deep defensive front line.
Yeah, no, I like the Bills draft. I gave him a B+. Epinesa is a first-round talent, a little bit slower than you'd like as a pass rusher, but again, he has a ton of size and a lot of strength. So I think he replaces Shaq Lawson on an already pretty solid defensive line. The Zach Moss pick in the 3rd, that's sneaky as well. I like Devin Singletary. I actually like what he does a lot. He's a little bit smaller, though. Zach Moss is going to be a little bit more of the bully. I believe he's 5'10", 220. So, an inch and 20 more pounds that he has on Singletary. And obviously, he averaged 6 yards plus per carry at Utah. So he adds a little bit more depth at the running back position. I liked some of the weapons they got there, too. Isaiah Hodgins was an underrated guy at Oregon State. They got him in the 6th. And, of course, Gabriel Davis, they got him in the 4th round, a wide receiver out of Central Florida. You look at these receivers on the roster, a lot on the smaller side. He's 6'3", so that gives him a bit of size. Because you think John Brown, Cole Beasley, is Stephon Diggs your guy running the fade and you're throwing a jump ball to? If Josh Allen can even throw with touch, then we'll see about that. But something that was interesting to me was the Jake Fromm pick, because Jake Fromm definitely does not have an arm like Josh Allen does, but he's probably a smarter football player. And I think we've seen that from time to time, what he did at Georgia. So I think that gives him another element of helping Josh Allen learn the game a little bit more and learning some reads. And you saw some of the guys that Jake Fromm played against, whether it was an Alabama defense, an LSU defense, and Georgia defense in practice, right? He's facing some of these guys all the time and can help Josh Allen at the next level, even if that's a backup, right? So I like their draft. I think they're set to win that division. Of course, the Stephon Diggs move helps. It's how much is Josh Allen going to leap, right? I already think he's better than Sam Darnold. Maybe call me crazy, but his running ability helps that quite a bit. Can he throw around 63% accuracy, completion percentage? That is going to be a question mark moving forward. You now have your number one. Prove it to me that you're the number one.
I think that's exactly what the Bills were trying to do there with that Fromm pick. I'll get to him in a second, though, but I do, like you said, I like AJ Epinesa. That's a great pick. I think he fell a lot, like you said. We were worried about the athleticism not helping him there, but I think he adds a lot. He could even play inside a little bit. He adds a lot to the defensive line there. Zach Moss, a pounder beast running back. He's a really good running back. Really, like, a lot of people have been comparing him a little bit to Marshawn Lynch. Hopefully the Bills treat him a little bit better than they did Marshawn Lynch. But either way, solid pick there, adding to their running game. And then Jake Fromm. We have to get to that. I think, it's interesting. I was thinking about it this morning how Jake Fromm beat out both Justin Fields, or at least made Justin Fields transfer, and Jacob Eason, same thing. For some reason, he didn't. And look, what you said is true. He's a smart guy. He doesn't really have any physical traits that you want by any means. But he may even be, it's funny, he's coming in like 2 years later, but he may be a mentor to Josh Allen. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. I am a bit concerned, though. There's always that concern about like having a weak arm. It's worse when you're playing in a place like Buffalo that can have god-awful weather come playoff time, but smarts can probably make you overcome that one. Now, we got to go to the guy you just compared him to. You could just compare Josh Allen to Sam Darnold, who has had a rough couple of years to start his NFL career. But with Mekhi Becton, he may make life miserable for defenders trying to get at him. So let's just go through it here. They got Mekhi Becton right away. Denzel Mims. So they're clearly trying to give Sam Darnold something to work with there after losing a few guys in free agency as well. I gave them an A for that reason. I actually think as well, same thing with the Giants. They did a pretty good job with their draft. They hit on a few guys, I think. Denzel Mims, I like him. I know you don't. But either way, I think that's something to work with there. Mekhi Becton, another guy, maybe not polished, but he's a physical freak. And then Ashtyn Davis is really good as well, a track star. Like, I think I don't even know how many other competitions he's competed in, but he's an athletic freak. And then somebody to add to the secondary with Jamal Adams, who, maybe despite what you think, is still a pretty solid safety either way. And then Bryce Hall in the 5th round. He was falling like crazy, and they picked him up. And I think that was a really good one. So I think overall, I think that this was a pretty good draft. Again, not a team that's really going to compete anytime soon, but I think they definitely didn't regress with this one.
No, I think they definitely got better as a football team. I think the one situation is Adam Gase has to be out the door because he's a terrible, terrible fit, I guess you could say. I don't want to say a bad coach because he's been coaching forever, but what he did there in that last year was really bad for the New York Jets. I like Sam Darnold. He now has some help. I really like Mekhi Becton. He is a big boy. He's going to knock some guys on their butt. I do think Denzel Mims, where they got him, I like that. I wouldn't have reached on him on the first round, but a second-round guy, I still think he has shaky hands, not a great route runner, but they still have some okay weapons there in New York. But I'm glad they went tackle first because that was a really bad offensive line, then receiver. I do like the Bryce Hall pick there, Ashtyn Davis, a team captain at Cal, one of the bright spots for Cal football. So there was some pieces on Michael Pirine again. He was an underrated running back, a lot of sleepers for a lot of scouts like that. Running back coming out of Florida because Le'Veon Bell didn't have a good year. So I think having another punch for him will help out. Is this a team that's going to compete right away? No. I still think there's a lot of holes. They've been disrespecting Jamal Adams. I think Jamal Adams is an ultra-talented football player. Do I think he gets overrated a little bit? Yeah. But I still think he's a really bright spot on your defense. Pay him the money he deserves. And they decide to trade him. Whoa, because that would be shocking. I would have taken another corner earlier, though, because that secondary is a little bit shaky. I like their defensive line. They actually had a really good run defense. Quinnen Williams, I think, is going to grow into more of a pass rusher moving forward. CJ Mosley's a good player if he can stay healthy. So I like some of the moves for this draft. I gave him a B because, Denzel Mims, I'm not super high on him, but I like where they got him. But the Bryce Hall in the 5th really made this a better draft than I thought it was.
Yeah, I think, I agree. They probably could have taken a corner a little bit higher, but Bryce Hall falling to them, hey, maybe that works out for them for sure. And I agree. Taking an offensive lineman was pretty smart. I still probably would have gone with CeeDee Lamb because, again, like we alluded this to in our mock draft, I just feel like with Sam Darnold's skill set, he's a guy that likes to, keep going. As the play breaks down, he kind of gets a little bit better. When you keep him in the pocket, he's not amazing. Yes, no matter what, you're giving him more time, so he's not seeing ghosts out there. But I do think CeeDee Lamb probably would have helped him a little bit more, especially because he can do a lot after the catch. So he doesn't have to be downfield. He doesn't have to throw it up high. He doesn't have to wait a long time. He can just throw it within 3 seconds. So that's, I think, what he needs. Either way, though, I can't complain about that Mekhi Becton pick. I think it's definitely a good one. But, again, solid draft from the New York Jets, and I agree. I don't think they're competing anytime soon. We'll get to some questions now, though. These 3 divisions, they're high-profile, the 2 divisions, they're high-profile divisions with high-profile teams in them. But did they get a little bit more competitive, or did they get less competitive?
Tough question. Let's go NFC East did. Because I think the Cowboys improved. I think the Eagles improved. I think the Redskins for the future improved. I liked everybody's draft in that, in that division. So I think every team got better. There's still some teams that are, already better because of the quarterback play. We know Dak Prescott and Carson Wentz are obviously better than Dwayne Haskins and Daniel Jones. But with time, they're going to get better too. And some players are going to regress. So I think that division got a little bit more competitive. When you look at the AFC East, man, I would be stunned if the Buffalo Bills didn't win that division because they have the defense. They now have the weapons. I think they have the coach. The New England Patriots lose the best quarterback of all time. The New York Jets are still quite a few players away. The Dolphins, we know Tua, he's going to need some time to get healthy, and there's still some major holes on that team. So did they get, more competitive, coming in like next year? No, not in the East. Maybe moving forward, but I think next year we'll definitely see a little bit more competitiveness in the NFC East. I think it's going to be 1-2 between Cowboys and Eagles like it has been forever. But, I still think the Redskins and Giants are certainly 5, 6, potentially 7-win teams.
I think so too. I think they're starting to claw out of the bottom of the NFL in both those teams. But you mentioned them, the Patriots. I still got pretty high hopes for them, but I'll let you hit on this one first. Will the Patriots make the playoffs?
No. And I think it's just because there's other divisions are too deep. So let's say they're already not going to win the division. It's going to be the Bills. That to me is a given. I already think the Bills are going to win the division. Then you look at the AFC North. You have the Baltimore Ravens, who are likely going to win that. The Pittsburgh Steelers, if Big Ben is healthy, that's a really talented roster. And you look at the Cleveland Browns, too. New coach, new offense, 2 tight end sets. Is Odell Beckham going to, be a little bit more healthy? Baker Mayfield, is he going to mature a little bit more? That's another team right there. So that's a potential there. Then you look at the AFC West. Kansas City's going to win the division. Is Justin Herbert the answer? They filled a ton of needs on defense. The Los Angeles Chargers did. Is that a team that can compete? Denver's offense is going to look unbelievable, I think, if Drew Lock takes a leap. There's too much depth in the AFC for a team with Jared Stidham as their quarterback and Julian Edelman as their number 1 receiver and Sony Michel as their number 1 running back in a good but not great offensive line leading the way. To me, sure, they still have the best corner in football in Stephon Gilmore. The New England Patriots do, of course. There's still quite a few holes on that defense. You do have the best coach of all time. I understand that. But can Jared Stidham outperform some of the other quarterbacks and other defenses and other teams in this conference? I don't think so. Me, way too early prediction on the Patriots. I'd say 6-10.
Wow. Okay. The reason for my answer right now, I'm going to say they squeak into the playoffs. I don't think they win the division. I think it's the Bills. I think the Bills will win it. But I think, man, you've got a couple easy wins there against the New York Jets and the Miami Dolphins for sure. I don't know about the Cleveland Browns. I don't think anybody does. I don't think they know how good they could be potentially. I definitely agree with the Ravens and the Steelers are tough out. But then, you got the Titans that squeaked in there last year. I don't know if they're going to be doing that. I really doubt it. I really doubt teams like that are going to be sneaking in there. I wonder generally what team even wins that division with the Houston Texans selling their best player in franchise history, better than J.J. Watt, if I'm honest, but topic for another day. I also just think that we're going to see how good a coach Bill Belichick is, because his offense is going to be probably abysmal, but they're going to win pretty much with the most old school style football you've ever seen. So I think they'll squeak in, maybe being hopeful, with a 9-7 record. They'll just barely make it.
So to me, you mentioned, 2 easy wins against the Jets, maybe 2 easy wins against the Dolphins. We don't know that because they lost that last game of the season in New England to Ryan Fitzpatrick and the Dolphins. This is going to be Tua Tagovailoa and a better offensive line and Byron Jones and Kyle Van Noy and Shaq Lawson and better players all over the field for the Miami Dolphins against a team in New England who lost a lot of players. So to me, I don't think that's a surefire win for the New England Patriots. We don't know what their schedule is going to look like and where they're playing at home, where they're playing on the road, and how it's going to line up with their bye and all that stuff. To me, I just think there's too much depth in this conference. Unless there's an injury or anything like that, I can't see them being that great. Defensive side of the ball, sure, they're still going to be a really good team. But on offense, man, we saw 2 really talented offenses duel it out in the Super Bowl with the Chiefs and, of course, a running style like the 49ers had. Can Sony Michel do that for the New England Patriots? I don't know. We didn't see it last year. So, to me, their offense scares me quite a bit. That's why I can't have them make the playoffs.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be tough. Their defense is 100% going to have to win a lot of games for them. But now we'll go to our final question. Now, it's, the Big Apple, New York. We have to talk about these 2 guys that they're trying to build around, Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones. Which New York quarterback, not just with this draft, not just with this offseason, has been set up for better success so far in their careers?
So if we're talking all New York quarterbacks, are we, taking
okay,
Josh Allen out of the equation?
Not Josh Allen, just New York City.
In the city. Okay. For me, I'm going to say Daniel Jones. I think they've realized we had a bad offensive line. Let's load up on the offensive line, and they did that. Andrew Thomas, Matt Purge, Shane Lemieux. Those are some really talented players coming in on a young offensive line moving forward. Do they need more weapons on offense? Sure. Golden Tate's a really smart player. Darius Slayton's going to take a leap. And then in the draft next year, again, like I mentioned, it's loaded. Jamar Chase, Rashad Bateman, Jalen Waddle out of Alabama, Devontae Smith out of Alabama. I think they can get a receiver then eventually too. You already have an elusive, terrific, once-in-a-generation type running back in Saquon Barkley and a really stretch the field type tight end. I think Daniel Jones has a better offense right now than what the New York Jets have. So I think they're already, set better on offense, and maybe for Daniel Jones' career moving forward. Can the Jets maybe get some more offensive line help? Can they maybe get another wide receiver and maybe a better tight end there? Sure, but as of right now, Daniel Jones is set up better to succeed than Sam Darnold.
I would agree, and I think I think just generally Sam Darnold, man, it looks bleak for him, man. He was coming out a couple of years ago as potentially the first quarterback taken, right? And man, it just goes to show you that a quarterback can be as good as you want, but if you don't build around him, it looks bleak. And I agree with that. I think Daniel Jones has definitely been set up for a lot more success in New York than Sam Darnold has, unfortunately. But we'll end it there, Nolan. This was great. Tomorrow we'll be coming on with the AFC and NFC West, where the 2 AFC and NFC champions have come from. So stay tuned for that, and be sure to stay tuned for the last one as well, the AFC and NFC South, which will be coming out later this week as well.